All right, guys. So today I'm here with the homie Dim the Sim. Dim, say hi to the people.
Hello everyone, how we doing?
I'm good, thanks, Dim. How are you today, mate?
Yeah, I'm not too bad. I'm keen to go over the tier list today.
Rank, rank some
See if there's any,
restricteds.
any underdeveloped mons that we, haven't looked at for Worlds.
Yeah. So I guess a bit of an FYI. We are about what 2.5 weeks out from Worlds, and Dim is going to the World Championship. He's playing there, so best of luck to him. We'll be rooting for
Yeah.
him. But yeah, we're gonna be going over the restricteds today. Basically, yeah, discussing what we think could win Worlds, what's pretty damn good. We'll kind of like break them down as well, go through some sets as well that are pretty good on these mons. But yeah, I guess before we jump into actually ranking them, we'll quickly touch on the tiers. So S tier essentially are the mons we think will be running the metagame. These are the Pokemon that are going to be incredibly good, essentially just warping the meta. And these are also the ones that are probably the best chance at actually winning the World Championships. A tier, obviously, are going to be really good Pokemon as well. These are ones that definitely have the potential to win Worlds. I wouldn't be surprised to see a couple of them in, say, top 16, top 32, so on and so forth. The B tier are the ones that I think have a chance at winning the World Championship, but probably, they're not going to see too much play, but look, they're definitely a chance. C tier, at that point, you're just having fun, right? These mons realistically aren't going to win, but, potentially we could see maybe a couple of them, day two, something like that. And the D tier is the don't tier. These are the ones where if you want to go to the World Championship and you want to do good, just don't play them. And then obviously the NA tier. These are like the ones that are non-applicable. I guess we could like throw these four in here. Like realistically, they probably belong in the don't tier. I don't really want to talk about Calyrax, the Cosmo forms or Necrozma because these monsters aren't good. They've got forms that are just far better than they are. So yeah, we'll kind of
If
just
you're
leave
trying
them.
to do anything, oh sorry,
No,
if
no,
you're
you got
trying
it.
to
You
do
got it.
anything respectable, in battling, you wouldn't use these mons.
Yeah, exactly. Look, and that's the thing, right? We're 2 weeks out from Worlds, or 2.5 weeks at least at the time of recording this. And yeah, that's all we're focused on right now. We want to look at the ones that are realistically going to win the World Championship. So, I guess without further ado, man, we'll jump in. Calyrax Ice Rider. Honestly, probably one of the worst Pokemon in the game right now. Calyrax Ice is, I mean, it's super mid, dude. 165 attack. Signature moving Glacial Lance. Only 120 base power, spread move, no drawback. Yeah, what are your thoughts on this Pokemon, dude?
I think it's underdeveloped. I think they need to give it more stats. It's just not good enough, really, for this sort of
Yeah,
format.
look, I think look, the toughest thing, man, is this one's speed stat, right? Like, it's got pretty average stats all around, but being the slowest restricted in the game, like, it really hurts it.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
no, honestly, in all seriousness, I think Calyrex Ice Rider is arguably the best Pokemon in the game. This thing is completely overstated. I mean, just look at its bulk, man. Base like 100 HP, 150 defense, 130 special defense, 165 attack. Like it's absolutely absurd. Again, slowest restricted in the game, which means in Trick Room, which by the way, it sets Trick Room for itself. It makes it absolutely devastating. This mon in Trick Room on balanced teams as well is it's just incredibly strong, man. Like I feel like you can't really say too much bad about this Pokemon. Like it's just
Yeah.
really that good.
Yeah, I think one thing that's really scary about this mon is just how many hits it can take without dying, and like super effective hits as well. Like you see its physical defensive stat and special defensive stat, and it's like its special defensive stat is as if it's holding an assault vest, which it isn't, which is crazy. The clear amulet just makes it really hard to shut down. You've got the option of Terra Fire to stop Will-O-Wisp, Terra Grass to stop the Spore, and Terra Water to survive, in the mirror against the Urshifus and all the other sort.
Yeah, and
It's just a staple of the format at the moment.
yeah, it's incredibly strong. As we said, it's very good on balance. It's also incredibly good on Trick Room. And I guess just to like mention it as well, you mentioned how it's like basically holding an assault vest. Rillaboom with AV, which is probably the most common assault vest carrier in the metagame right now. With an AV has what 135 special defense. That with an assault vest.
Yeah,
This thing's got 150. It's got like 15 more points in that, and it doesn't have to hold an AV, which is kind of wild. And look, as you said, the Terras on this one, they're all pretty consistent. Like Terra Water obviously is just a really good neutral defensive typing. Not much really hits it for super effective damage in the metagame. Realistically, it's grass and it's electric. The best grass type right now is Rillaboom. Amoonguss isn't doing any damage to you. And I guess the main electric types you're talking about are Raging Bolt, Miraidon, both of which you just nuke with Glacial Lance. Same again with the grass type. So Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
this mon's incredibly good. I think you touched on Clear Amulet as well. Obviously, when you've got a mon that hits this damn hard, one of the best ways normally to slow it down is things like Incineroar, which does have a pretty solid matchup into you. But again, if you can't, sit there and spam Intimidate, it does become pretty problematic. I guess speaking of Incineroar as well, high horsepower is like normally the go-to coverage move on this mon. Just ground coverage is really good. Obviously, it hits the fire types, it hits the steel types, which you can struggle to hit with Glacial Lance. But yeah, dude, this one is just incredible. I do think this is probably going to be the most use restricted at Worlds. How do you feel about that? Do you think it's going to be number one, or where do you see it ending up?
I deal with a lot of team building partners that are from Asia and different regions, and when I call Kali Shadow Kali Kali Ice Kali I, they call it Kali W because it just wins. So they're very keen on using Kali Ice. I'm expecting a lot of Kali Ice at Worlds. It's going to be, yeah, taking over, definitely.
Yeah, and look, again, I agree. I think the really interesting thing with this mon as well is its ability to play in just a bunch of different archetypes, right? Like, as we said, we're talking about things like just the standard balance, right, where you're pairing with, Relay Incin and, of course, Urshi. There's some like other cores as well, like the hard trick room stuff with Blood Moon. We've also seen like the Decorate Smeagol as well pair incredibly well with it. So there's just a lot of different things you can do. I'd love to see some Mad Lad as well, or go like the Jolly set where you go like Jolly Max and in Tailwind you're faster than Kali S. I don't think we'll see it, but you never know. But yeah, honestly, I think it's pretty safe. Put it in the S tier. This thing is gonna run the meta game. I truly believe this thing's probably. Because I also think not only is it the best, but it is probably just the most splashable of the restricteds. I really think this mon's gonna probably have somewhere around that 30% usage. Yeah, like I don't think it's going anywhere below S tier.
Yeah, definitely. I think if you were going to the World Championships tomorrow and you had him prepped with him on, Kali Ice is the one to go to.
It's like not only like again, I don't want to drag on too much with this, but there are very few mons that have the ability to end a game quite like Kali Ice does. And not to mention that as well, like Ice Stab is just incredibly good. And there's a reason a lot of the best Ice type moves have drawbacks, right? Things like Blizzards can obviously miss. Icicle Crash, can miss as well. And then really outside of that, like you're talking about things like Ice Beam, Ice Spinner, which aren't that powerful really. And again, you look at a metagame where there's so many dragon types running around, right? There's a lot of Fire, Water, Grass stuff running around as well. Just having that strong Ice type stab is incredible. And again, once this one gets going, it's almost impossible to stop. Like it will just run through teams.
Yeah, it's a nasty mon to go against. You got to be very careful.
Yeah,
definitely.
So we'll put that one in there in the S tier. And I guess now we'll move on to its best buddy, Kali Shadow. I know you're a bit of a Kali Shadow man. Do you want to kick us off here?
Kali Shadow, where do I begin? The second fastest mon in the format, only behind Regieleki, has one of the most busted abilities in the game, which we didn't mention with Kali Ice, but is also the same.
Yeah. Very silly.
Can be run pretty flexibly in a couple ways, or maybe not flexibly, but can be run with a bunch of terrors and movesets and items. Starting off, the most common one was probably Terra Fairy Nasty Plot.
Yeah, so that was the Draining Kiss set.
With Astral, Draining Kiss and Astral. As of late, because of the oppressiveness of Kali Shadow, people are now running the Terra Normal set with a Astral Psyshock and Nasty Plot. And if you just want damage, there's the set that's loved by all, the Choice Specs Terra Ghost Astral set, which is the most nastiest set possible. Yeah, you never want to face it. You have to, nothing resists a Terra Ghost Astral from a Kali Shadow. What are your thoughts on Kali Shadow?
I mean, yeah, look, I love this mon. I think its ability to play on hyper offense is really cool. I'm not a massive balance fan, so I'm a huge fan of like the Choice Specs Terra Ghost stuff, especially when you pair it up with things like Chi-Yu or anything that has Helping Hand. Obviously, it does incredible damage. And then like going back to those sets you were talking about before, like these like Draining Kiss sets are incredibly frustrating to deal with, right? Because a lot of the time they're paired up with Clefairy, right? So you've got Redirection, you've got Friend Guard, it has Life Do. You know, sometimes they're sitting there clicking Sing, being like super duper annoying. And then of course on top of that, you've got like Rillaboom and Sin, just like both clicking Fake Out, both pivoting in, right? You're cycling these Intimidates. You know, then on top of that, you've also got to be careful of like the Urshi Rapid coming in and just like nuking, you know, whatever your answer to it is, right? Like, for example, a lot of people, you know, are running things like Chi-Yu, right? We see a bit of Choice Scarf Chi-Yu out there because obviously, type-wise, it has a pretty good matchup into it, very similar to Incineroar, but it can actually outspeed it and, you know, pump out some damage. One of the best ways to deal with a mon like Chi-Yu is just to click Surging Strikes. So yeah, it's an incredibly, oppressive, I guess is the word I'm looking for here.
Yeah.
I don't think there has ever been a Pokemon that can end a game quite like Kali Shadow, right? You know, when we talk about Kali Ice, it really needs Trick Room to really like dominate a game, or at least like end it super quickly because of its speed stat. But as you mentioned, right, Kali Shadow is, you know, the second fastest mon in the game, the fastest being Regieleki. But Regieleki sees like minimal play. So outside of that, it's like Booster Bundle, Booster Flutter Mane, and then any other booster, you know, I guess speed Pokemon, but realistically, none of them see that much play. So yeah, it's an incredibly scary mon, dude. Like, this thing can just end games. Not to mention as well, Astral Barrage is going to be like one of the stupidest moves ever, because like, what, I think there's one resistance and one immunity, right? Outside of that, it hits everything else for at least neutral damage. Like, Dark resist it, normal is immune to it. I don't think there's anything else, right? Like,
No, that's it. That's
yeah,
it.
it's like,
You know it's oh sorry. You know it's bad when just from having one move that's busted, that normal types become prevalent and normal terrors become a thing. Before Kali Shadow, you never saw a normal terror on anything. It didn't make any sense.
yeah, like
Now that's the norm.
like I think the only time I ever saw normal terror was like super early on the what's it called? Like super early Reg F, when people were looking at things like oh, actually it was probably even Reg E when they were looking at Porygon Z, right? And like that was like super early in the format. Ever since then, I don't think I've seen anything. Like,
Yeah.
I can't think of it. And like, you're seeing a lot of mons do it. I've seen Rillabooms go Terra Normal. I've seen obviously Golden go as a mon that's now going Terra Normal. Yeah, it's honestly insane like how many mons are actually running Terra Normal now just to combat this Pokemon. It's kind of wild.
You'll be on ladder and you'll even find some Kali Ice that are running Terra Normal
Yeah.
just to counter Kali Shadow.
I mean, it's super
Nuts.
scary, right? And like, obviously looking at the stats, it doesn't have quite the same level as Bulk, obviously, that Kali Ice had, which does make it a bit easier to deal with at times. But that is why like Intimidate plus Friend Guard with like Nasty Plot, Draining Kiss, or even like Calm Mind Draining Kiss as well is something that we've seen quite a bit of. It makes this one super scary because all of a sudden, you know, you take hits that maybe you shouldn't normally be able to. And then you just go like Terra Fairy, Draining Kiss, like heal it all back, you know, nuke something like an Urshi, you know, and then all of a sudden the game just feels incredibly over. Like I've been in positions where I feel really strong and then I just miss a kill. It frags like my Urshi, it goes back to full HP, and then the game's just over. This one just like 1v4s you. It's honestly really stupid. And as you said, like, we're seeing so many normal types right now. Like, we're seeing a lot of teams run like double normal. We're seeing like, I think we're even started seeing like Kyogre teams running like quad dark at one stage. Like, so many teams have to prep for this mon that if you're not ready for Kali Shadow, it is just going to beat you. Like, it's as simple as that. If you can't stop this mon with, you know, immunities and resist, it is just going to run through your team. And yeah, I think honestly it probably just belongs right next to its guy here, Kali Ice. If I had to guess, Kali Shadow is probably the mon most likely to win the World Championships, especially with the results from the most recent VR tour. But yeah, if it's not number one, I think it's, you know, it's 1, 2, or 3. It's somewhere in that top 3. It's gonna be top 3 most used. And yeah, I honestly expect to see it, you know, probably go on to win. I think if I had to put money on anything, I'm putting it on Kali S.
Yeah, I think in terms of usage, I reckon Kali Shadow might be the number 1 usage. I'd definitely see it being in top 4, maybe even in the finals.
Yeah.
We'll have to see if it wins. We'll see how I go.
Yeah, well, fingers crossed Tim's gonna be there repping it in the finals there. But
Yeah,
we've basically just spoken about the 2 best Pokemon in the game, so hopefully these other ones don't take us anywhere near as long. But the Dialga forms, do you think we should rank them both together? Because I guess realistically they're probably the same thing. Like they're
having a quick look at it, I think they are fairly similar.
they basically
The
are.
stat, distribution's different.
It's slightly different. I think it's 20 attack into defense, and that's basically the change here. So if we have a look here, it's like the 20 attack goes into the special defense, plus you're forced to hold the orb.
I reckon we can go over both of them at the same time.
Yeah. So look, I will actually talk on this because I actually have been playing Dialga Origin literally today and yesterday. This mon has one niche and one niche only. It's telepathy plus trick room. It is one of the better trick room setters in the game. Obviously has a really good typing with Dragon Dark. And its bulk is really good. 100 HP, you know, 120 both the defenses. Obviously the regular form doesn't have the Spadef, but still it's a steel type, really bulky. Very, very good special attack stat. And while 90 speed is, you know, pretty decent, for a trick room setter in like a restricted metagame, it's honestly not that bad, right? You can run, you know, something like a quiet nature with 0 speed, and this one can get relatively slow, right? You know, under trick room, it's like 85 is nothing, you know, insane, but there are a lot of mods that you can underspeed with it. But yeah, really, its whole niche in the metagame right now is telepathy plus Ursaluna. At least the regular form Ursaluna, because what you can do is you can set up Trick Room, you know, you pair it up with like some fake out mon, and then you just click like Guts Earthquakes next to it, and you don't hurt your friend, and then they both just deal a lot of damage, because yeah, Dialga with maxed out special attack is actually quite strong, especially with moves like Draco Meteor. It can actually pump out quite a lot of damage.
Yeah, that sounds like a really good delete button. I guess it's a, you know, it's a nice niche. At least it has its own thing.
Yeah, and
yeah.
that's the thing. Like, I don't think there's too much we can really say about it. I honestly think this is probably the only viable way to play this one. But realistically, if you're playing it, you're having fun. Like for me, I wanted to play it with Ursaluna in Tailwind. The team looks like a Trick Room team with like a Tailwind mode, but really it's just max speed Ursaluna and a very fast Dialga that people in Best of 1 aren't ready for. But yeah, I think they're having fun. Honestly, solid mons, probably going to be a lot better come a double restricted format. But yeah, in a single restricted format, realistically, you're never running one of these over either of the Calyrex forms. The power level is just drastically different.
Yeah, I would say if you're bringing Dialga to Worlds, you're a very brave individual.
Yeah, you're not. I don't think you're trying to win it. Yeah, I think we can move on to the next one here. Eternatus. Now, I will say, I'm really biased on this one. I mentioned it before we started recording. I am a massive fan of Eternatus, right? Eternatus, however you want to spell it, right? However you want to say it. I'm a huge fan of this guy. I absolutely love it. It's one of my favorite restricted Pokemon to play with right now. There are really 2, maybe 3 main sets that we can kind of discuss for this guy here. Do you want to talk about the pressure set for me first, the cosmic power setup?
Okay, so for Eternatus, with the pressure set, I think it gets, what is it, cosmic power that boosts its special defense and its defense. It's got recover. Yeah, both defenses got recover. It's got toxic, and with pressure, it causes an absolute nuisance for the opponents, especially if they're running either of the Calyrex forms, because the Calyrex forms and other Pokemon only have 8 PP on some of their moves. It makes it very difficult for them to get off a lot of attacks. So instead of having 8 Glacial Lancers, they might only have 4. And if you protect in between, that halves the number to 2, making it very difficult for them to KO the Eternatus.
Yeah, it honestly really is a really annoying set. I don't think you're right. Like, this set here feels kind of weird. At least the one I have in front of us. Like, if you're running Protect, I don't know if you want to run Toxic. You maybe want something like Dynamax Cannon, Sludge Bomb, something like that. But yeah, it's the whole purpose of this is you pair it up with Fake Out support. Obviously, I think Rillaboom's incredibly good with it as well. And yeah, it's kind of there, you know, as Dim said, against things like Urshi, against the Callies, you're really good at getting rid of their main like offensive moves, right? You know, getting rid of the Ash Rajas, Glacial Lances, Wicked Blow, Surging Strikes. And there's a lot of other mons as well that have these really powerful moves. And yeah, the gist of it is you're just trying to cosmic power up, recover through, and then, you know, when they don't have their go-to attacks anymore, now all of a sudden you can actually start dealing a bit of damage to them. Yeah, probably. I don't know if this is the best way to play the mod right now. It's definitely not the way I like to do it, but it's definitely a viable way to do it.
Oh yeah, I was going to say it's the easiest way to fall asleep at night if you're struggling, I reckon.
Yeah, it's very boring gameplay. In terms of Terra, I don't know what people run on this thing. I'm guessing probably Terra Dark, maybe. Like
You could probably just go for like a general like water, like Terra Water.
yeah,
It can't
even
really.
water's probably fine as well. Yeah, because like
Yeah.
obviously you don't want to get taunted, at least by like some of the priority mons. But yeah, I do think having just a neutral defensive Terra obviously is really good. Water's obviously really good into Kali and Urshi as well, or at least Kali Ice and Urshi Rapid. But then I guess we have the other two main sets that we can talk about here. One is the Power Herb set, which I'm a huge fan of, and the other is the Choice Specs set. So with the Power Herb set, because I kind of touch on this one first, because this is definitely the more offensive way to play it. It's the Meteor Beam stuff. So you're going like Meteor Beam, you're going like Sludge Bomb. Sludge Wave is also okay as well, depending on your partner, and then it's just like Dynamax Cannon, and Protect. Now, you can opt to drop it for or like one of these moves here, either Dynamax Cannon or Sludge Bomb for a way to hit Steel types. So either like Earth Power is fine, Flamethrower is also okay. But yeah, this is kind of like one of the better ways to play it, in my opinion. Really good on Tailwind teams, pairs really well with Chi-Yu as well. And this is a mon where its stats are actually really good. Like this mon is actually like, I think it's an ability away from being a really strong Pokemon. Because like honestly, pressure is just one of the worst abilities like a restricted Pokemon can have. It's very basic, like half of them have it. But it's quick, it hits really freaking hard. It has a very, very good HP stat. So yeah, I do think this mon is like an ability away from being a good good Pokemon, but even then, like I still think it's really good. As I said, I'm super biased. Like I play this thing with Chi-Yu. And like when you run like a modest set, this thing just does insane damage. And then like you have Meteor Beam to get a +1, and it honestly just starts like running through teams. And then we also have like the spec set as well. Again, this is very similar to what we just looked at. You're not running Meteor Beam on it, but you are looking at things like Sludge Bomb, Sludge Wave. Sludge Wave also is really good with Terra Steel and Tinkerton as well. I really like it with Tinkerton. But even like Terra Steel, Tornadus, I think it's really good with as well. Because you just got like Terra Steel with Covet Cloak. You set up the Tailwind, you just start like spamming out Sludge Waves and it does a lot of damage. And then yeah, oh actually it doesn't get Earth Power, I lied. It gets Flamethrower. But yeah, like Flamethrower and then like Dynamax Cannon, something like that. You really want a way to hit Steel types because Dynamax Cannon obviously is like Steel types resisted, and obviously Sludge Wave you can't hit the Steel types there. So I definitely think you need a way to hit Steel types, and Flamethrower is just one of the better options for it. In terms of Terras, as Dim said, I think Water is just a really good neutral typing. Grass isn't too bad either. I also played a lot of Fairy as well. I felt Terra Fairy was really good when you're going up against opposing Dragon types. Because when you look at this tier list, half the mons on this list here are dragons. A lot of them run things like Draco Meteor, which can obviously deal a lot of damage to you if you're a dragon type. So I think Terra Fairy is definitely one of the better neutral Terras to run on it. But yeah, I even think Terra Ghost as well is not too bad, especially if you are trying to keep that immunity to fighting. And obviously get yourself the resistance to fighting, but also get an immunity to fake out on hyper offensive teams.
Yeah. I personally think like Eternatus right now, it's good, but I think in a double restricted format is when it will really shine.
100%.
Will really get that potential. I'm pretty comfortable putting this one in a B tier, I reckon.
Yeah.
I don't think I don't think you're definitely having, look, if you're using the Cosmic Power set, don't. If you're using the other sets, I think more particularly the Meteor Beam one, it can be really strong. I think I'm pretty happy and comfortable putting it in B, to be honest.
Yeah, and look, again,
What about yourself?
so the B tier is where I was going to put it. As I said, I'm biased. I really like this Pokemon. Of all the restricteds I've tested, I think Eternatus is the most underexplored by far, and it's not even close. It is honestly the only restricted on this list where I've personally taken it to really high ladder, and I just see no one playing it. So yeah, I'm going to say it's B tier. I think it's a chance to win Worlds. I think if someone finds the right team for it, it's definitely a good mon. As I said, I think that Meteor Beam set with Chi-Yu, very reminiscent to the Glamora stuff we saw back in Reg F. Yeah, I think it's really good. Maybe I'm biased. I just love using this mon. Yeah, I think it's a chance.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, we'll move on to the Giratinas though. Again, similar to the others, we'll rank these guys together. Do you have much to say about them, dude?
For the Giratinas, I haven't really seen too much of them. I've seen one set on the base form, I believe it was. And on the base form, it was maybe Clear Amulet, and it was Swords Dance, Shadow Sneak, Phantom Force, plus, I believe, a Dragon move.
Okay, it doesn't even get SD. Was it Dragon
I
Dance?
like that. How did it?
It
How did
doesn't
it?
even have Dragon Dance. Was it weakness ball?
I don't know. I must have been imagining things. But yeah, it was just a Terra Ghost set that pretty much spammed ghost moves, more specifically priority Shadow Sneak, double stab Phantom Force, stuff like that.
Its only
Um,
setup is Calm Mind, by the way. So if it boosted, it would have had to have been Decorate or Weakness Policy, I'm guessing.
Trying to remember what sort of set it was, but yeah, that sort of says as much as you need to know about Giratina. It doesn't really have much going for it. Um,
Yeah.
it's not the strongest mon. It's probably a don't at this stage.
It's
Have
yeah.
you
It's definitely
have
a
you ran
don't.
into it much?
I've played like one or two. I think one of my viewers did post a team that they did really good with in my Discord. But yeah, like looking at it right, stats wise, it's very, very mid. I do think it like if it had setup, all of a sudden it would be pretty good. I think Shadow Force is gonna be one of the worst signature moves in the game. Like, yeah, it does a lot of damage, but taking like the fact that Shadow Force has a charge turn, yet it does the exact same damage as Astral Mirage, but it's also not a spread move, is kind of like absolutely nuts to me. I really think that should be changed in the future. But yeah, like this is a one that's meant to be bulky, doesn't get access to like Toxic for Toxic Stall. It does have pressure. I don't think it gets Recover. Yeah, it doesn't even get Recover, so I'm pretty sure Rest is its only recovery move. Yeah, this Pokemon is just the epitome of mid. I think the one set I personally looked at was like Hex Will-O-Wisp, with Calm Mind. So you can run something like this where it's like bulky support. You got like Hex Willow, and then you just like, I forget what else I had on it. I feel like there's another special move I put on this. I forget exactly what it was. It was just something to hit normal types, I believe. But yeah, like, I don't know. I think both forms are just super, super average. Like, maybe the core form, or the origin form, sorry, could like be a little better. But again, it's like bad signature move, bad stats. The typing's like not bad, but yeah, it doesn't have the move pool, and for a mon that's like, especially in like its base form where like pressure is kind of its niche, where like you kind of want to stall stuff and you don't have recovery. Yeah, I don't know, dude. I'm pretty comfortable to say don't. I think this is the worst restricted in the game, personally.
Yeah, yeah. Wait, the worst.
Yeah, yeah.
Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be too against that. Now that you said it out loud, I'm having a look at them.
Yeah, I look, if it's not the worst one, it's definitely in the conversation, and that's its main
Yeah,
issue.
100%. 100%.
We'll leave it there. Moving on to Groudon, everyone's favorite Sunsetter. Obviously, you know, the king of previous formats, a mon that has definitely not seen the amount of play I think a lot of us thought it would. Yeah, well, what are your thoughts on this guy right now?
I think if you're banned from the casino and you can't gamble there, why not try Groudon? Honestly, Precipice Blades, one of the most, if it hits, you've won the game. If it misses, you've lost the game sort of move. There's a couple sets that you can run with it. All of them are pretty much clear Amulet at this stage, but it's pretty much Precipice Blades, Heat Crash, and then either Swords Dance, Bulk Up, Helping Hand. I've also seen a lot of Helping
I've seen
Hand.
Helping Hand with Specs, Flutter in particular.
Yeah, or Scarf Chiyu.
Yeah,
I
also
think
really good there.
Groudon is a really strong mon. It has an unreliable move, which is unfortunate, but it helps stronger mons be stronger.
Here is what I will say about Groudon, right? Of this list, I think there is no Pokemon that benefits more from double restricted than Groudon, right? And the other thing I'll say is if Precipice Blades was 100% accurate, this mon would probably be a top 5 mon. I think that one of the biggest issues a lot of people have with Groudon is the fact that it can miss when all the best restricteds don't have to worry about it, make it so much worse to actually play this one. Like, Groudon, unironically, is in a metagame right now where it feels like there's 0 good ground types, right? The only good ground types are like the Ursaluna forms. And then like maybe you can make an argument for the Landorus's, but they both feel pretty freaking average in my opinion. Like, we are so desperate for a good ground type, and Groudon is that guy. But when I'm running Groudon versus Cali Shadow, it's just like 15% of the time, I'm accepting the fact that I'm gonna miss a P-Blade. And when I'm like, if I'm going to Worlds and I've got to play, you know, whatever it is, like, is it, I think 12 rounds of Swiss you guys will have to play before Top Cut. And it's like,
Yes,
if I have to reliably win 12 best of threes, clicking Precipice Blades, like I'm not doing it. Like I can't do it, man. This move is gonna miss too often. And it's awful too, because I honestly think if this mon hit its moves, it would genuinely be a legitimate shot to win worlds. Like I am that high on this mon, but yeah, I think if in a double restricted, it's gonna be really good. In single restricted, I think it's a bit harder to justify it. Just because Precipice Blades misses. That's like the main issue with it.
Yeah, I think there's definitely a lack of a good ground type in this format. As we'll be talking a bit later, one of the best mons is an electric type that we do want ground types into. Yeah, looking at the list, it's just Ursaluna and
bad.
Ursaluna.
Yeah, like Ting Lu. Ting Lu's like a mon I think should see a little bit more play. It doesn't. Sandy Shocks, not very good. The Donphan forms aren't very good. Lando T is like probably underexplored, but there's probably a reason for it. And then like Lando I is like good on some rain teams. And like outside of that, that's it. Like Swampert sees no play. Rhyperia technically has seen a little rise because of Lightning Rod. But like, yeah, dude, we are starved. Like Sand is bad right now, so we see no Excadrill. This isn't Gen 9 OU, so Gliscor isn't like dominating. Like, yeah, it's rough, man. Like, look, I'm gonna say it's Beard's a chance to win. If you hit Precipice Blades 100% of the time you click it, I think there's definitely a chance, but I can't really put it any higher than B tier, I don't think.
Yeah, I think because it's unreliableness, I think it could be at the top of B, but I don't think it could go any further than that.
Yeah, nah, I agree. But we'll move on to Ho-Oh, an actual fire type. We didn't actually mention that, but Groudon's not a fire type that sets the sun. But yeah, Ho-Oh, what are your thoughts on this guy here?
I think Ho-Ho is a very interesting mon, and it's one where if you're not really prepared for it, it will cause you a lot of grief. Typical set: Clear Amulet, Regenerator, Sacred Fire, Brave Bird. I believe the last couple moves are a bit flex. Is it? Yeah, Recover and Protect.
I think it's something like this is what I've seen.
Yeah, it's more the third move. Like, if there's another move for Recover, I think there might be some static moves. But it's more a mon where if you're not prepared for it and you don't really have a plan into it, it can get one of those wins against you, you know? And it's a bit, it's a tricky mon to take down. It's very bulky, especially in its special defense.
Yeah, look, I'd say
oh, sorry.
It's a mon that pairs incredibly well with Intimidate. Because again, its defensive stats pretty bad, but between like an Intimidator plus Sacred Fire having a 50% chance to burn, this mon can be an absolute menace, right? Terra-wise as well, I think Terra Water tends to be the go-to, because you want to obviously have a better matchup into things like Urshi. I would say its biggest issue though does become Miraidon, which is why I think Grass also isn't too bad on it. Because really like Urshi and Miraidon are the two mons that really have the best matchups into it naturally. But yeah, again, this is another one that I think come double restricted is incredibly good. Its biggest issue is it doesn't end games like Calyrex does. It doesn't end games like Miraidon. And I do think that is one of its biggest issues is, like, yeah, sure, it can sit in front of a Calyrex Shadow, it can eat some hits, it can fire some, Sacred Fires back. But in the time you click 2 Sacred Fires, Cali just killed 2 of your teammates, and then all of a sudden it's a 4v2, and it just, it doesn't feel amazing.
All alone.
But yeah, it's one of those ones, again, come at double restricted. I actually think this one's really good. And I actually do think it's a good Pokemon right now. I have seen balanced teams be super annoying to deal with it, but yeah, like I think for me, I'll put it in the B tier because I do think it is really good. It's definitely better than the Dialgas right now. But yeah, it's kind of probably it feels weird putting it here for me even because I don't think it's a chance to win worlds, but I definitely think it is a good Pokemon. It's really waiting for that double restricted.
Yeah, I think in a double restricted format, it will have its time to shine. I think if you're looking at it right now, for me personally, it's a more you're having fun mon, or you're trying something new mon. But I could, it's better than Dialga, you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, I think that's the hard thing, because, like, again, I'm going to put it in the C tier, because I do agree. I don't think you're running this mon and winning worlds, and because of that, I will drop it to C tier. But yeah, I think it's right there with Groudon as arguably the best Pokemon come at double restricted, right? Because when you look at a lot of the top restricteds, right, pretty positive matchup into Cali-S right now. Obviously, it's really good into the Firewater Grass stuff as well, that Cali-S tends to be paired with. It's a pretty 50-50 into Kali Ice, but if they aren't Terra Fire, then Sacred Fire can burn, which really ruins the game. Obviously, it's incredible into Koraidon, resisting both its stabs and the ability to burn, plus it abuses the sun it sets up, obviously is fantastic. And then, yeah, just a lot of the other restricteds here, like, really good into both dogs, Zashi and Zamazenta, which we'll get into later. Yeah, like, I definitely think there's a niche for it, come double restricted. It's just, yeah, like, right now, it probably doesn't have the power to solo carry a game. And that's probably, yeah, where its biggest issue comes.
Agreed.
We'll move on next to Koraidon then. What do you feel about Koraidon? I'm pretty high on this bond. I really like it. I just love Sun in general. Yeah, I think it's pretty good. It pairs really well with some of the big Sun damage dealers like Flutter, Fish, and of course Raging Bolt. But yeah, what are your thoughts on this?
I think it's theme that we're seeing at the moment is Sun is strong and Sun is good. The fact that Groudon can get pretty good play just from having Sun says a lot about it. Koraidon is a bit more of a reliable Sun user. It gets some really strong moves. Most common moveset, Collision Course, Flare Blitz, Protect, and then usually Flame Charge or a Dragon move, depending on the set. Some even run Helping Hand if they want to be a bit fancy, similar to the Groudon sets. Well, I'm seeing here with Loaded Dice set. I personally haven't seen this one before. That one.
I've seen.
Do you have much experience playing with this one?
With the Loaded Dice set, no. I've used Koraidon a lot. I'm a huge fan of this mon. I think it is very, very strong and has really good matchups into some of the restricteds. Not to mention, as you said, that I've seen the Helping Hand stuff paired up with things like Specs, Flutter, Scarf, Bish, and it can it just shits damage. Like, it's really strong. Not to mention, like, Oricori Impulse is just better than Drought. Like, it's Drought, but you also get this 1.3 times boost to your 1.33, I should say, sorry, boost to your attack stat. Collision Course obviously is stronger than most other fighting moves, and also doesn't have the drawbacks of things like close combat. Of course, Flare Blitz is not a stab move, but you do set the sun. And in terms of Terra, this mod is 4x weak to Fairy, so Terra Fire is just very natural on it. So things like Terra Fire, Flare Blitz, obviously giving you stab in the sun, and then getting the boost on top of it is just, it's a lot of damage multipliers, and it can put out a ridiculous amount of damage. And yeah, I'm a big fan of this mod. I think it's really good. Yeah, I think when you have a look at some of the top restricted as well, it does have a pretty solid matchup into some of them. And because of that, I would personally say it's in the A tier. I think it's a really good mon. Definitely has a shot to win Worlds. Probably isn't on the same tier as the Kalis. But yeah, nonetheless, it's really good.
I think this would have been an S tier Pokemon if its arch nemesis Pelipper wasn't in the game. It's just the fact that Pelipper shuts it down so badly. It's almost hilarious.
Yeah.
I think into a lot of other matchups, it's really strong. The way it supports its partners, especially there is so many Pokemon that can abuse the sun. You've got Fluttermane, you've got Chi-Yu, and you've got one of the scariest ones, Raging Bolt. It doesn't die, and it just nukes you for damage. You got like Walking Wake, as you can see a couple other ones on screen. There's so many different options that you could use to sort of enhance it. And I think Koraidon is really good at supporting the team. A lot of times when you have a restricted on the team, like a Kali Shadow, the team supports Kali Shadow. But in this case, Koraidon supporting its partners.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to put it as well. And again, like, I think Koraidon right now is really good. It is arguably a top 5 restricted in the game. And as you said, it supports the team so well that, like, come a double restricted format, this could become one of the most used restricteds, right? Because one, it is the more reliable Sunsetter of the two, right? Obviously, it doesn't miss its primary stabs like Groudon does. Two, it's just naturally faster. Its fighting type, its typing of Fighting Dragon is also pretty solid as well. And we're in a metagame right now where Fairy being your only weakness isn't that bad. Fluttermane's usage is at an all-time low. Xerneas isn't in the game, and there really isn't a good Fairy type in the game. Like, the best Fairy type right now is what, Fluttermane, then probably Zacian. Both of which, Fluttermane's maybe 20% usage, and Zacian's like, what, 2-3%? So yeah, I think it's really solid in the A tier. As you said, it supports a lot of these, strong special attackers really well. Obviously, it benefits a lot from Clear Amulet. Like, Honestly, Clear Amulet feels like it was made for restricted formats, just so Incineroar didn't like hard shut these mons down. And again, it's a mon that has a really positive matchup into Incineroar, which is, you know, one of the best mons in the game. As a matter of fact, it does just beat the Fire, Water, Grass stuff that's running around right now. Obviously, you can threaten a one-shot with Collision Course on Incin, you can threaten a one-shot onto Rillaboom with Flare Blitz, and of course, Urshifu does like 0 damage too, because you're in the sun, and you can just nuke it back, and, you know, most of the time you're going to outspeed it unless it's Choice Scarf, so... yeah, I think it just has a really good matchup there, and when that team, like when that core of like Incin, Rilla, Urshi is on like 50% of teams, I think this mon, it's never gonna be bad. It's just, as you said, Pelipper is a mon right now that is one, incredibly good with Kali Ice, and two, just hard shuts you down. It resists both the moves you normally run, can fire off a massive Hurricane in return, and because it's slower, its weather is just always gonna go up.
Yeah, it has its downfalls, but I think a good player will know how to use Koraidon well, and it's definitely a chance for being top 4 at Worlds. I can definitely see that happening.
Yeah, I agree. So you're pretty happy to put it in the A tier then?
Yeah, I'm very happy to put it in the A tier. I reckon that's pretty fair for it.
Very nice. Well, we've done both Sun Mons, so it's a perfect time here to transition into the Rain. We have Kyogre. Another one of my all-time favorites. I love Kyogre. I love Rain. I probably enjoy Rain a bit more than Sun, if I am going to be honest here. Absolutely love this mon. We've seen quite a few different sets, you know, pair really well with it. Yeah, what are your thoughts on Kyogre, dude? This is...
I think Kyogre right now is the more reliable Groudon, if that makes sense. With Groudon, you've only got Precipice Blades. You don't have any other ground moves to use it. Kyogre, you have that unreliable move, which is Origin Pulse, but you also have the Water Spout to do massive damage, and it can't miss. You have Ice Beam, you have Thunderbolt, you have some Japanese players have run Blizzard. There's so many crazy sets that you can run with this mon, and it seems like one of the more interchangeable restricteds. You can run Assault Vest on it, you can run Mystic Water on it, you can run Mystic Water Calm Mind, or just Mystic Water Offense.
There's
you
the
can
lefties
also
as
run
well.
Leftovers as well, yeah. You can run Choice Scarf, and of course, Choice Specs. It's just one of the more, it's one of the more flexible restricteds. When you're playing it on best of one, you never know what's going to happen, and it's always scary to go up against, especially in closed team sheet. Rain is a really busted weather effect, especially in the way that it supports its partners. You've got a lot of Swift Swim partners that do really well. You have an Urshifu that does really well with it. Just a really strong mon that, you know, you won't be upset with running Kyogre at Worlds, I reckon.
Yeah, and one thing as well, just quickly looking at the sets here, I was actually helping out one of the homies yesterday. Mystic Water and Splash Plate, I believe, work together. Just FYI, because we were looking at the team, we're like, damn, we really want to go Mystic Water on both Urshi and Kyogre, and then I was like, wait, Splash Plate exists. So yeah, keep that in mind. But yeah, as Dim said, definitely the most flexible restricted. This mon has a ridiculous amount of different sets you can run, right? Like there's, as we said, the Hyper Offense sets with like Scarf and Specs. The Assault Vest set, which is what I think, was it Tang Shilang ran at NAIC, where he got like top 4 or something like that? Either top 4 or top 8, where it was like, yeah, so that was like the AV set paired up with Wo-Chen, where like the Wo-Chen was 1 point faster, it was clicking Slide Pollen Puffs, healing up, clicking Water Spouts, which is really good. As we said, we got the Mystic Water Offense set, we got the Mystic Water Setup set, there's like the Lefties plus Rillaboom set as well, where you just like, you click Calm Mind. I think to keep in mind as well, I guess, is Terra Water and Terra Grass are like the 2 primary Terras as well for this guy. As Dim said, incredible partners. Urshi and Tornadus are just 2 of the best Pokemon in the game regardless. So when you have something that, you know, freely sets the rain for him, obviously it's, you know, incredible. Like Bleak Wind and Hurricanes coming off Tornadus is like, special attack stat is never a bad thing. Of course, Surging Strikes in the rain with Terra Water is also just pretty freaking busted. But yeah, it just feels like one of the best mons in the game right now. It really enables a lot of other Pokemon as well. Like, you don't see Serena see any play except for on Kyogre teams. I think the best screens team right now are definitely Kyogre teams as well, because they're one of the few teams that where, like, while they do set up the weather for Urshi, You know, you set up a screen, you know, Kyogre's bulky enough that it's going to eat Surging Strikes and just return massive damage into the Urshi. Not to mention as well, Terra Water Scarf Kyogre can one-tap No Bulk Urshi, which is like kind of funny considering it's a resist, but definitely something to keep in mind. But yeah, Kyogre's, dude, it's just so flexible, man. Like, for me, I think it's an easy A tier. I think this is probably like the best shot of the non-S tiers, I think, to probably win Worlds.
Yeah, I agree with that as well. I, when you're playing against it, I think sometimes you think it's an S tier mon. I think because of Origin Pulse having the chance to miss, it's probably best to stay in the A tier. It is a really strong mon with a really good chance of winning Worlds. Yeah.
Yeah, honestly, I think the Origin Pulse is the perfect way to look at it, right? Because if Water Spout never lost its damage, I think it would be right there as the best Pokemon in the game. But very similar to Groudon, the fact that it can miss its primary stab move really does hinder it just that little bit. And you know, we've even seen people run like Hydro Pump over like in that slot as well, just because you want single target. And again, Pump can also miss. So I think its ability to miss moves really is the major thing holding it back. But regardless, I still think it's incredible. For me, it's probably the 4th best Pokemon in the game, so I'm happy to sit it right here in the A tier.
Yeah, definitely belongs there.
Anyway, we'll go on to the Kyurem forms here. We will rank them separately, obviously, because they do a little bit of different stuff. Do you have any opinions on Kyurem Black?
I have not used Kyurem Black at all, so I'd be happy to learn a bit more about Kyurem Black and how it's run.
Do you want me to show you like all you need to know about Kyurem Black?
Yep.
Alright, so I have my restricted Pokemon here. Kyurem Black, right, has 170 base attack, 95 speed. It's a Dragon Dance Pokemon that has access to loaded dice to click its, you know, primary moves, being like Scale Shot and Icicle Spear, of course, right? You know, pretty strong moves. This is my restricted Pokemon, yeah? Then I have Baxcalibur, which is like almost the same Pokemon that has a Burn Immunity. It also wants to run things like Clear Amulet or Loaded Dice, and it does the exact same thing. It's just like it is the same Pokemon, except one doesn't have one isn't the restricted slot and the other is. And one also is like burn immune. Like you look at this, yeah, Kyurem beats it, right? HP wise, it's 10 more points, attacks like 25 more, defense is like 8, special defense is 4, speed is 8. Like they are almost the exact same fucking Pokemon, exact same typing, you run the exact same sets. It's just Baxcalibur's not a restricted and it has a burn immunity. Like that to me, that's all you really need to know about Kyurem Black. And Baxcalibur sees no play. Like Baxcalibur sees 0 play for a reason. I would say this is probably a don't Pokemon, but realistically, it can click Dragon Dance, and it can also kind of scale with loaded dice and whatnot. So like, I'm gonna say yeah, you're having fun. I don't think it's as bad as Giratina. It does have sets it can run, but yeah, I'd say the biggest issue with it is just run Baxcalibur. It's almost the exact same Pokemon. Really good attack stat. Like, don't get me wrong, this thing's a nuke. It's the strongest physical attacker in the game. It is also not a bad Clear Amulet mon. But the only issue with the Clear Amulet set is, like, it really feels like with this set, you can't run, like, Adamant on this thing. You kind of have to run Jolly, which is its, like, big issue. And because you have to run Jolly, it almost feels like you may as well just go, like, Swords Dance. You don't even get... Hold on, you don't even get Swords Dance. Don't worry, yeah, just play Baxcalibur, guys. Just go Adamant Baxcalibur. You'll do the exact same thing, but slightly better. But yeah,
sounds like a plan.
Yeah, you're having fun. Kyurem White though, this is another mon that I'm gonna say right there with Eternatus with as my hot take of the format. I think this mon is probably like right there as the most underexplored Pokemon in the format. I'm a big believer in Kyurem White. I think the only thing holding this back is Alola Ninetales. If Alola Ninetales was a better weather setter, I do think Kyurem White would see a lot more play. Because it is a mon that feels like it relies on the the snow a bit more than obviously its counterpart being Glastrier or Calyrex Ice Rider. But yeah, if it had a reliable way to click Blizzard, this mon's stats are really good. It's the strongest special attacker in the game, has very, very solid bulk, and its speed stat, while isn't anything too crazy, on balance teams is pretty damn solid. It's a really good Assault Vest mon as well, not to mention Choice Specs. I would say it's probably like the other main set. And it tends to just be Terra Ice. You run it like Modest, and you just absolutely nuke with Blizzard. Like, you look at that special attack stat there, dude. You pair that with Terra Ice, you pair that with Specs, you put it in the hail, and all of a sudden this mon is incredible.
Yeah, I've played against a couple Kieran Whites. None of them are fun to play against. Blizzard is a very strong move for a reason. The Assault Vest set is very hard to take down. The Choice Spec set is very hard to take many hits. I can definitely see this having more potential, maybe in a double restricted format. It's not something you want to play against. If you're at a local, you're 3-1. This is your winning in to get into the top card, and you see a Kieran, you're gonna have to get through those freezes, and that's just something that you don't want to do. So yeah, definitely a very interesting mon.
I think a big thing to keep in mind with Blizzard as well is this mon normally sits next to Alola Ninetales, which is also clicking Blizzard. And while the Ninetales definitely doesn't deal anywhere near as much damage, having two Blizzards, both like with a 10% chance to freeze, is super scary, right? Because if your opponent hits you, 4 times, with each of those times having a 10% chance to freeze, you're gonna get frozen. Like it's gonna happen, and freeze is the dumbest mechanic in the game. I'm sure we've all been there where you just get frozen for 6 turns. And it really just feels like, why the fuck am I playing this game? Like I just got frozen, I can't move, and yeah, it's kind of a wrap. But yeah, I would say if you're playing it, run Specs or AV. Terra Ice is probably the way to go. Terra Ghost, Terra Fairy are both also decent options, but realistically, that's your moveset right there. Blizzard, Freeze Dry, Draco Meteor, Earth Power. I don't see a reason to really run anything else. If you weren't running Specs or AV, like of course you could look at things like Helping Hand with Protect, but realistically, yeah, this is probably your set here. Weather Ball is also really interesting, but again, probably not. But yeah, personally, I want to say B tier because like I'm a big believer in it, but it's probably a C tier mon. Like, what do you think?
Yeah, I was gonna say I'm a bit more coming at a C tier angle. I think it definitely is more on the higher level of the C tier. I think it's definitely slept on. You can't disrespect it, and yeah, I think it's suited for the top of C.
Yeah, no, I agree. As I said, I think this is a mon where if we had a better weather setter, all of a sudden, I think this is definitely a B tier mon. Arguably even A with its stats. But yeah, its biggest issue is Ninetales just like, it isn't Pelipper. It definitely isn't Koraidon or Groudon. And yeah, because of that, I think yeah, C tier is pretty solid. But do you have any thoughts on like Baby Kyurem here? I'm pretty sure it's just worse Kyurem White, right?
Yeah, from my understanding, it's pretty much just worth kind of like I haven't really gotten much use out of it. I haven't seen it.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's got pressure instead of Terravolt. Its offensive stats are worse. Its defensive stats are the exact same. Yeah, I'm just gonna say don't. If you're gonna run Kyurem White. We don't need to waste our time here with base form Kyurem, I don't think. But then Lugia. Do you have any experience with this guy here?
With Lugia?
Yeah.
Brother, what's that? Honestly, I've played a couple Lugia. If that's what you like to do, I respect it. Look, Lugia, you run weakness policy, you run leftovers, calm mind.
This is cover. This is like the only set you can run. If you're not running this, you're not doing anything. Lugia's issue is this. Like, I'll show you this. Yeah, look at this. My modest max special attack Lugia has 156. We just go to this guy here. It's like, oh shit, my 0 attack Kali, who's like adamant, hits that hard, man. Like literally adamant, no attack Kali hits basically as hard as this thing. That's all you need to know. I think like you honestly you're griefing. Like it's a mon that's I don't know. Like it was released in Generation 2 when 90 special attack was okay. Now 90 special attack is not okay.
Yeah, definitely. I played against a Lugia, and I think it didn't have a weakness policy. It had leftovers and calm mind, and it got its 3rd or 4th calm mind off, and he's like, all right, he's ready to play, yeah?
And then it
does hits me with an Aero Blast on my Kali Shadow, and it just does like only 7%, But it's like you've calm minded 3 times, yeah? You've spent half the game doing this, and honestly, I want to say don't. Oh,
You
look, you're having fun. I think it belongs to you're having fun.
you have it like
But
if
I
you're
really
playing
want to
Lugia,
see.
you're having fun, man. That's why you're playing it. Like, look,
I
I'll say
mean,
at least Lugia has a fucking build, right? Like, Kind Mind weakness policy is better than whatever Giratina does. That's all I'm gonna
yeah.
say.
All right, fair enough, fair enough. You know what? I'm happy that you
Dude,
put it at the bottom
honestly,
of you're
dude,
having fun.
I'm putting it there for G-Man. I know he loves Lugia, so it's that's my guy.
Sorry, Jay, man. It's just not for me, man.
Lu
Uh,
Lunala though, this is probably the worst of the best mons, I would say. At least it's probably right there. Do you have any opinions
yeah.
on this guy? It's kind of
I
Cali
think
Shadow, but is it?
Lunala. Yeah, I think Lunala is a very interesting place in the meta, even though it's a bit more quiet than some of the other restricteds. Like you're showing now, you have the Power Herb set, which is really nice, fast, offensive. You're not setting up, you're just going bam, bam, bam. You also have the Trick Room leftover set with Wide Guard, Trick Room, Moongeist Beam, and Moon Blast, is it?
Yeah, because I
I
think they
believe
go
it is.
Moonblast because they go Terra Fairy, right?
Yeah, Terra Fairy and the Shadow move, and then
Yeah.
they have Wide Guard. Yeah, that's it. Then they have Wide Guard and Trick Room, and that's a really good support mon. And then finally, the one that I've been seeing popping up a fair bit is the I believe it's Calm Mind leftovers, either Terra Grass or Terra Fairy, and the Lunala's the actual
To
centerpiece of
carry
the
the
team.
team, yeah. It's kind of similar, I guess,
Yeah,
to the Cali Shadows we're seeing with like Plot and whatnot.
yeah,
Except it's like a much better balanced piece in the sense that it's a lot bulkier.
yeah.
And obviously, it can do a bit of other things. Um,
Lunala is if Kali Shadow and Terapagos had a baby, sort of.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's definitely one of those ones where obviously Shadow Shield's an incredible ability. Having that extra turn to set up, especially on a ghost type that can dodge fake out, is obviously really really nice. As you said, there's a few different sets. I think the Power Herb set is incredibly strong. Especially on the Trick Room teams. Like if you compare it with another Trick Room setter, like a big one I've seen is Indeedee, hence is why I've put the Expanding Force on, because I've seen situations where people lead Indeedee. And then they either just go like follow me Trick Room, or they just like say, hey, you can't kill my Lunala this turn. I'm gonna set Trick Room with the Indeedee, and I'm gonna click Meteor Beam this turn. So I've seen a lot of that. Obviously, expanding Force in the right game is always good. Especially too because going back to the thing with Kali Shadow in particular, right, is a lot of these teams are running both Dark types and they're running normal types, right? The most common Dark types in the format right now are probably Chi-Yu and Incineroar, both of which get absolutely nuked by Meteor Beam. And then, of course, for all the normal types, they just get bopped by Expanding Force. So I do think these sets here, obviously they're not normally Psychic. They go for things like Terra Normal, Terra Fairy. It's just a really, really strong set. And then, yeah, as Dim said, the supportive set here, I think this is going to be an absolute menace come double restricted. It's like right there with Groudon and that as... Like, when this is the second restricted on the team, I think it becomes so much scarier because it can be played as, like, a support. And you don't have to worry, like, about where your damage is coming from. You sit this next to a Kali Ice and you say, okay, I've got another Trick Room setter. Yeah, sure, I can deal a bit of damage, but, when you don't have to be the main damage dealer, I think this mon obviously just feels a lot better. Yeah, look, I definitely think it's a chance to win Worlds, man. I'd say it's definitely a top 10 restricted, probably somewhere around that 7 to 8 slot if I had to guess. I'd say it's better than the two there currently.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that position. I think Lunala is going to be a beast in double restricted. I think, honestly, if you use Lunala right now, you would have a good chance of, if you're a strong player and you create it right, you could win Worlds.
Yeah,
I think there's two really scary sets that are being run at the moment. It's the Calm Mind one that you can't kill. Well, the Trick Room one as well is like, but I also really like the Tail Room teams
yeah,
with the Power Herb.
yeah.
That team,
I agree,
just
yeah,
like,
yeah.
all right, call if we're going fast or we're going slow, or you lose the game.
Yeah, no, I agree. I have seen those teams as well. They're pretty scary. Honestly, part of me actually wants to bump this to the A tier. What do you think? Like, I think it's just that much better than Groudon and Eternatus that it feels kind of bad putting it in the B tier.
I really, if there was somewhere in between, I definitely would.
It's like that B plus.
Um,
It's like the best of
yeah,
the B tier, probably the bottom of the A tier is probably its issue. Look, we can maybe come back to it later, because I do know there's a few more mons coming up that'll probably definitely go a little higher than where we're at now.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think for now we'll keep it there, and we'll leave the door open to potentially moving it up.
Yeah. Sounds good.
All right. So the calm before the storm, we have Mewtwo. Any thoughts on the original restricted legend?
I think this is the biggest demonstration of power creep, or the opposite of that, how far things have gone. It's a worse like a worse Kali Shadow in every way. It just doesn't really have much going for it. It doesn't have an ability that's worthwhile. I think they should give it like psychic terrain or something. That would be really cool.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Or some sort of. Oh yeah, sorry.
I don't know if I've spoken to you about this. So I've recorded a video on this that'll hopefully be coming out in the next week or two. Actually like fixing these restricteds. Are you familiar with Necrozma, Ultra Necrozma's ability?
No.
This one here. Can you read that? I'll zoom in.
Yep. Against the target. Okay, yeah.
And the reason for that is Mewtwo has like just an incredibly deep bag of special attacks. That's kind of the idea behind it. But I agree. I actually think as a terrain setter, Mewtwo would also be really cool. But yeah, like I think having something along the lines of Neuroforce here would be really good, just because Mewtwo has just an incredible move pool. So giving it the option of like that bonus damage for hitting for super effective damage, I think would be really good. But realistically, as you said, Kali Shadow is better in every way. It's faster, it hits harder. Mewtwo has Unnerve. Guess what? Kali Shadow also has Unnerve, and then it also has Grim Neigh on top of it. It's also a Ghost type, which is like infinitely better than being a pure Psychic type. Like Mewtwo's best thing is like expanding Force, but again, if I'm gonna run an E-Force restricted, just run Kali or Lunala. They're just so much better. Yeah, sadly Mewtwo probably just in the don't tier. As much as I love Mewtwo, like it's the original restricted. I remember using this thing all the time in like Red and Blue. But yeah, it's probably right there. Like I think it's better than Giratina. But realistically, it's definitely in contention for that worst restricted in the game.
You know, for the amount of Ultra Balls I had to throw at this Pokemon to catch it, you'd expect it to be a bit better. And it's just a bit disappointing that it's where it is. And I don't know, I think maybe if the future games are a bit kinder to it and it does get some much needed buffs, that would be really interesting, and it would, revive the Pokemon.
Yeah, look, I think without some Game Freak intervention, this mon is never going to see any play in any actual like serious competitive tournament, at least at a high level. Yeah. Sadly, he's just in the don't tier. But yeah, as I said, calm before the storm. Miraidon, what are your thoughts on the other cover legendary for Generation 9?
I honestly think, well, personally, when these lists came out, Miraidon was absolutely slept on. Me personally, I slept on it too. I thought it was one of the middest.
In my
just the way that people were using it initially, I think people were too fixated on getting the electric terrain. Not photosynthesis boost. What is it?
The photosynthesis Quark Drive.
Quark Drive. They were too focused on the Quark Drive boost. They're putting Iron Bundle. They're putting all these other mons that didn't need it. Miraidon, Choice Specs, Terra Electric blows things up. I think this Pokemon is a real contender for winning the World Championships. I definitely see it being in the top 4.
I think it's gonna be top 3. And look, we just saw with the VR tournament over the weekend. 240 players, absolutely stacked with just incredibly skilled players. It had 5 of the top 8 placements for a reason. I said like a month ago, if I was going to Hawaii, I would have locked in Miraidon a month ago. I think it is that good. The biggest difference between Miraidon and the Kalis is the Kalis really run through games with their spread moves, but there is no Pokemon in the game that outdamages Miraidon. Like Terra Electric in electric terrain with Choice Specs. Obviously, you get the Hadron buff as well, which means your special attack is just dealing more damage. And then you pair that with things like Giraffe with Helping Hand. You pair that with things like, Chi-Yu with either Terra Ground or whatever the fuck you want to run with, right? And they just like, you're sitting there, Beads of Ruin. There is no Pokemon that does more damage than a Miraidon with Choice Specs, Electric Terra in terrain. Like, it's stupid. This mon one-shots resist. Like, I've seen Amoonguses get one-tapped by this. Like, we're talking about a mon that is meant to be incredibly bulky, that also resists it. It's, yeah, like, there's not much to say. Like you said it perfectly, right? Everyone was trying to pair this guy up with other mons that actually use the electric terrain. You talk about things like Koraidon and Groudon, who are also weather setters in the current format, where they're kind of there to buff their friends. Like Kyogre, yeah, it's pretty good in its own reign, but it's there to buff things like Tornadus and Urshifu. Miraidon doesn't give a shit. It's just Miraidon. He's like, I don't need friends. I'm him. I'm running through your team. I'm clicking Volt Switch. I'm clicking Electro Drift. And yeah, it's nuking teams, man. Like the Draco Meteor, obviously Volt Switch, Electro Drift. We are also seeing other options as well. I've seen Parabolic Charge a little bit when they pair it with some ground types. We also see things like what is it?
It would be either Discharge, or if they do the Terra Fairy set, Dazzling Gleam.
Yeah. Discharge was the one I couldn't think of for whatever reason. But yeah, like those I forget who ran it, but that team where it was like Terra Electric Discharge, but it was also paired with the Giraffe that was Terra Ground Helping Hand, and you would just go Terra Ground Giraffe Helping Hand turn 1 Discharge and just like nuke 2 it's stupid, man. For me, it's easy S tier. Arguably the best Pokemon in the game. Definitely top 3 in my opinion. And yeah, it's right there with Kelly Shadow. Like if I had to, in my opinion, this is the order I would go with in terms of what I think is going to win Worlds. I think Miraidon is the hardest Pokemon to prep for of these 3. I think everyone is going to be over-prepared for Kelly Shadow. I think Kelly Ice is going to be the most used Pokemon, and a lot of people will be ready for it. But I think Miraidon is going to fall into that sweet spot where you better hope you have a Rillaboom and some really good plays. Because if you're not ready, Miraidon's going to run through you.
Yeah, Miraidon made Rillaboom the most popular Pokemon in the format at the moment.
Yeah,
it's outbeating Instinct.
Which is absolutely wild. Like, it's wild to think that really, like, not only is Amon more used than Instinct in a restricted format, but it's another freaking starter Pokemon, man. That's the crazy part to me.
They made him good that generation. But, yeah, I think the thing with, like, for example, with Kelly Shadow, you can tech on a normal type, or there are good normal types that can stop Kelly Shadow. Miraidon, there isn't any good ground types that are really there to stop Kelly Shadow. You have to specifically tech this mon on your team to counter it. Unless you're using an Ursaluna, that's probably the only one where it's like, a bit more flexible for the team, a bit more splashable.
The worst part about that too, though, is there is no Ursaluna alive living a Draco freaking with Choice Spec. You just get if you get the prediction wrong and they click a Draco and you switch in, you're done. It's over, man.
Yeah.
But yeah, and like again, like talking about that, there's no good ground types for this thing. The other type that resisted is electric, and unless your name's Rillaboom, you're taking too much damage to an Electro Drift. Like, you cannot pivot in a grass type to Electro Drift. You will be two-shot. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, you can be an Assault Vest of Moongus with max HP. You're probably still getting two-shot. Like, it's just that strong. Like, there's really not much. Yeah, I don't think there's much to say. This one's S tier. In my opinion, it's right there, top 3. Pretty interchangeable.
I think all 3 of those mons will be in the top 4 at the World Championships. I'm referring to, like, the actual finals.
Really?
Top 4, yeah.
Oh, look, I would go as far as to say top 8, simply because I would not be shocked to see, like, 3 Miraidons in top 4 or 3 Kelly Shadows in top 4. But
you know what? I wouldn't be too surprised either when you say it like that. Maybe Kelly Ice gets cut out.
I mean, dude, we look at the Victory Road Tour that just happened, and the top 8 was all Kelly Shadow Miraidon. And, like, again, you're talking incredible players. I think, like, Joe UX9 or Joseph Hikade, he just got, like, top 4. The guy who won it all was, like, top 16 at Worlds last year. We also saw, like, Brady Smith in the top 16. Like, incredible players in that event. And 2 Pokemon, 2 Restrictors made top 8, which is, it's nutty. Like, I can't believe that 3 weeks before Worlds, there was 2 Pokemon that were that dominant.
Yeah, maybe the Kelly Ice players slept in or something. I'm not sure. But...
Look, maybe everyone was just that ready for Kelly Ice, and now people are going to start tweaking things. Shit, we got to be ready for Miraidon and Kelly Ice.
Yeah, definitely.
Anyway, we have the Duskmane and Dawnwings. You want to rank these guys together? They're relatively different, I want to say. They kind of function. I guess they function somewhat similarly, but I only think one of them's good.
Okay.
Are you familiar with either of them, or do I have to educate you here?
I'm more familiar with the Wings. I've played against the Dawn Wings, I believe it is.
Yep, Dawn Wings.
Yeah. So Necrozma Dawn Wings is a really good Trick Room mon with expanding force. Does it get Moon Guy
Yeah, so
Speed?
this is
Yeah.
this is the build. Oh, it doesn't get wide gun. I thought it got wide gun for some reason.
Meteor Beam. Meteor Beam.
They run
I
meteor
think.
beam.
Does it?
Yeah, it does. It does. Because the set for this guy, there is one team that I've ever seen do good with this, and I see it doing good all the time. It's that Sunroom team where it's like Torkoal, Indeedee, Lilligant, this guy,
Ultra.
and
Yeah.
then regular Ursaluna. It's the
Yeah.
only team I see this guy have success in, but it's always top cutting tournaments. It's always like top 8, top 16, top 32. It's always there in these big online events. I think it's even had some results at like NAIC and whatnot. So I would say Dawnwings has a shot. I think this one is surprisingly okay as a Trick Room setting restricted. It definitely has a niche. You might be able to like inform me here on the Terra, but I'm assuming it's just Terra Fairy or Terra Normal.
I've seen one, Terra Water, I believe.
The Terra Water is also not too bad, I guess.
Yeah, I think that's the one that I saw it running. But yeah, you can run a couple different sets.
Yeah.
It's pretty stock standard. Whenever you see across the Dawn Wings team, it's going to be pretty much the same. It's going to be setting up Trick Room with its Ursaluna, Indeedee, potentially Torkoal, and its other partners. And I think it's good, but the problem is you know 100% what's going to happen all the time. It's only really ever run one way.
Yeah, and that's the thing, right? It's got its niche. It's decent in its niche, and that's it. And oh, that didn't work. Okay, I just realized Tropicos wasn't on the list, but I'll add that in shortly. We'll figure that out when we get near the end of the list. But yeah, so I would say personally, I actually think this is probably B tier simply because of that one Sunroom team. Probably the bottom of the B tier. I don't believe in this mon, but I think that one team is good. Do you have any opinions on that?
You know what? I'm just thinking out loud. If we're putting Necrozma, Dawn Wings, put Lunar. That's what I was gonna say.
Because
Like, I'm happy to put it there, but put it.
yeah, because like I'm looking at this more like I think Lunala has to be A tier, honestly, because I don't know how many more mons are going into this B tier, and of the mons that could, I just think Lunala's better than them all. Like looking at the rest of the list, I think Lunala's better than anything else in the B tier.
Yeah, I was just comparing the two. I'm like, nah, can't be. Can't be. We have to put Lunala up. But yeah, I'm pretty happy with that one. And the other guy.
As for this guy, obviously like the set on it's like Clear Amulet. It does like the exact same thing. It hits really hard, and it has Trick Room. I will say the only niche this mod has, in my opinion, and it's why I was actually bringing up Terapagos, is Sunsteel Beam. For anyone who doesn't know how these signature moves work, it ignores the opponent's ability. So if you can catch a Terapagos trying to click a setup move, you actually just one tap it, because you ignore its Terra Shell. And so when it's in the mid form, you can just nuke it. That's like this one's like it's one niche. Outside of that, it doesn't really do much. Like I know in the Dynamax days, it ran like weakness policy because you'd go like weakness policy, and then like bulldoze yourself in a Trick Room team like Dusclops. But I mean, yeah, this mod's really not doing much. Sadly, like it can't run weakness policy in the current meta game. It doesn't put out the pressure like a lot of the other mons do, like the Callies of the world. And then not to mention, there's a lot of Trick Room sweepers that kind of just beat this guy one-on-one. Like the Ursalunas beat it. Iron Hands is also pretty damn good into it. Giraffe right now is like everywhere, and it's also running like Foul Play. It feels like a lot of mons are also running Shadow Ball. It just feels like there's way too much coverage for a Psychic type right now. That doesn't like either one, pump out ridiculous damage and just sweep games, or two, just have like that much support. I think that's this mon's biggest issue, is it's like it goes Clear Amulet. And it's like its one good matchup is literally Tropicos. Outside of that, I don't know what else it does.
Yeah, I don't think it does anything well enough to. Yeah, I'm pretty happy with don't. I don't think it does anything well enough, or it doesn't have anything that stands out enough to make you want to pick it. Even in a double restricted, you'd feel bad about using one of your restricted slots.
Yeah, it's hard to, right? Because I think in a Dynamax metagame, it was fine as a double restricted, but without Dynamax, yeah, I don't know. I don't think Terra's enough to make this one good. It's really hard. And like obviously this isn't a tier list for a double restricted. Like I'm sure if we do one of these again for a double restricted, guys like Ho-Oh all of a sudden are going to be B tier. But yeah, keeping that out of our mind, I think it's just, yeah, it's a don't use this guy.
Yeah, agreed.
Palkias though, I think we can rank these together. Are you familiar with Palkia at all?
I haven't personally used any Palkia since. Have you?
I have not used it for a good reason. I will tell you what Palkia does. This mon is, one, bad abilities, same as the other Generation 4s. It's really, really sad. This mon has one niche and one niche only, and it's when Kyogre's the best Pokemon in the game, it's good. As like a off-meta niche pick. If Kyogre's not on like 40% of teams, just don't run it. Like, it's... Yeah, it hits hard, don't get me wrong. Its origin form is actually pretty decent. Like, maybe there's a world where, like, the origin form on a rain team is, like, actually kind of niche. But realistically, Draco Meteor's its, like, best stab. It doesn't have a single reliable move. Like, it's got Hydro Pump. It's got, what is it, Spatial Rend, I think? Is it Spatial Rend? Yeah, Spatial Rend. Like, it doesn't have any good moves with 100% accuracy. I do think the one's good, and as I said, in a metagame where Kyogre is around, it definitely has a niche as it 4x resist water-type moves. But yeah, I think it's right here. Both forms just sitting with Dialga. Like, you're not playing it. Feels bad, man, but yeah, I don't think it's good. Like, I guess I should add, it clicks Trick Room. It is a Trick Room setter. But yeah, I don't know. We're talking about how, hey, Groudon can miss Precipice Blades, which is bad, and then this guy can literally miss every move you run on it. So yeah, I don't know. I don't think we're considering this at all, sadly.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Smack him there. Ray, probably the biggest I don't want to say disappointment, but definitely the one that hurts me the most. I'm a huge fan of Rayquaza. It is my favorite restricted legendary. It has like one set, I think, and one set only, and that's the Clear Amulet stuff with of course like Chien-Pao plus you pair it with like Chien-Pao and you pair it with Giraffe. You click Swords Dance and you click Extreme Speed with Terra Normal. Yeah. And
one thing I'll say about Rayquaza, I remember on the lead up to the restricted format, everyone was worried, oh my god, E-Speed, Swords Dance is going to be busted. It's going to be a better Dragonite. That's what I always heard. It's going to be a better Dragonite. And then when it comes down to it, you spend a turn setting up. You go for your E-Speeds, and it's just, you'd rather just get that immediate damage from the Dragonite that can't be flinched, can't be intimidated. It's just, as a restricted mon, it's just not worth the squeeze. The juice is not worth the squeeze.
Yeah, I would say it's tough, right? Because in a metagame where weather is everywhere, obviously Kyogre gets so much better. But realistically, Kyogre's what, maybe 8% usage, 10 on a good day, and then Miraidon, Groudon probably don't even combine for another 10%. So realistically, on a good day, you're getting your ability maybe 20% of the time, but realistically, you're probably getting your ability 15% of the time. And on a mon that already isn't that good, yeah, I don't know. Like, I think you're probably just having fun. I'd say this is like the best way to play it, something like this. But yeah, sadly, as much as I love Ray, like maybe in a double restricted, maybe its ability ends up becoming like really valuable, but yeah, I don't know. Like the biggest thing you got to remember with a mon like Ray is it's a mon with like 680 base stats, but its effective base stats is like 530 because your best stat is like tied with attack and special attack, and you're not clicking special moves. Therefore, it's just a massive waste. Like when you compare it to things like Calyrex Ice Rider, it's like, oh, like realistically, its worst stat is its special attack stat because it likes its low speed. And because its like special attack stat is so low, it can have 100 in all its defenses and stupid attack, stupid defensive stats. Whereas Ray is just like, I have all these points here that I'm wasting. And yeah, I don't know. Feels bad for Big Ray.
Yeah, I think the fact that a lot of its stats are going into both attack and special attack sort of weakens it as a Pokemon.
Yeah.
Maybe it'll get some use as a special attacker in the double restricted. We never know. Or it could just be an easy spot.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like I'm happy just to put it in the C tier. I think it has a niche similar to some of the ones in the tier, but realistically, the niche just isn't that good.
Yeah.
Reshiram, are you familiar with this mod at all, either?
I am a bit familiar with Reshiram. It doesn't have that much going for it. It has Blue Flare, Draco Meteor, and then usually a flex move, or two flex moves. I've seen some run Choice Specs. I've seen some run Assault Vests. Um, it just honestly, if you're using this, you'd rather just use like a Chi-Yu. You know what I mean? Blue Flare is a worse Sacred Fire. It misses more often,
Burns
and it
less.
burns less.
I will say, Reshiram's like its niche has always been an anti-sun mon, like very similar to Palkia. Being a dragon fire type, it has a really positive matchup into fire type attacks, and being a fire type itself, it can abuse the sun. But yeah, unless you're in a metagame where like sun is everywhere, this mon just feels super mid. Like it has the stats, like very similar to like Kyurem White. It has stats, right? Like its bulk's decent. Its speed is okay. It has really solid special attack, but yeah, like it kind of just has like this no ability. Like Turbo Blaze is just Mold Breaker, so it's kind of like whatever. Again, it's decent into Teropagos, but that's it. And yeah, as you said, it's just like I don't know. It's pretty mid. I don't think we have to waste too much time on it. I'd say you're having fun. It's probably still better than like something like Lugia, but like realistically, it's probably just in the C tier.
Yeah, I agree with you there.
Yeah. Anyway, Solgaleo. This is another interesting mon. Probably a bit better in a double restricted. Probably misses Dynamax a lot as well, because I do believe it was pretty good. It does have the built-in Clear Amulet, which is obviously really nice for it. Solid stats. I believe it is a drag. Actually, no, it's not a Dragon Dancer. The other one's a Dragon Dancer. But yeah, I think like in the past, people ran like Weakness Policy plus Bulldoze. Yeah, have anything to say about this guy? Like, it has Sunsteel Beam, similar to the other form of it, but yeah, I don't really know what else it does.
I think if you want to have some good fun, it's a fun mon to actually have a experiment around a bit. You have a secondary mon that has Bulldoze. Sometimes it can be Gyarados. Sometimes it can be other Bulldoze mons. You get your weakness policy, you slow everything down. It does decent damage. It's a respectable one, for what it is. You wouldn't see this winning Worlds, but you might win a local with it,
Yeah, look, I agree. I think it's a fun mon. There's not much to talk about, at least in the current metagame. It's not fast enough. It doesn't hit hard enough. It's not bulky enough. Like, it doesn't have... Like, again, I think in a Dynamax format with, like, Weakness Policy Bulldoze, this mon was actually good. But in the current metagame, single restricted, like, yeah, I think you're having fun. Like, again, I think it's better than this form. I think it's better than Mewtwo. But realistically, in a metagame with a lot of psychic restricteds, it's probably just the worst.
Yeah, I agree with you there.
Before we move on to the dogs, we'll quickly do Zekrom. Do you have any thoughts on Zekrom? Because I feel like it's pretty similar to what we just said about Solgaleo.
I haven't used Zekrom much. I haven't seen it much, so I'm keen to see if you've used it a bit.
I haven't. I've seen it get some results. Like, its only niche really is Clear Amulet Dragon Dance. Basically, like every restricted physical attacker, you just put Clear Amulet on it and you feel good. But yeah, like this is kind of its niche. It's literally the third worst dragon electric type in the format. Like, why run this when I could have Miraidon or Raging Bolt? Like, Raging Bolt I think is just better. It's like, technically it's not bulkier, but it has other pieces to it. Like, obviously, one, Photosynthesis is really good. Two, it's a very good Assault Vest user. It has priority with Thunderclap. It's also a special attacker, so you don't have to worry about Incineroar intimidating you. So yeah,
Crazy, you're actually right. I think I'd rather have a Raging Bolt.
Oh,
and that honestly says a lot about Raging Bolt, not just Zekrom.
It's a restricted Pokemon, dude. I'm telling you.
Yeah.
And like also looking at its dragon coverage here as well, it's like you're literally running like Scale Shot or Outrage, which is just I don't know. It feels kind of bad. I don't want to go too much into it. I think you're having fun. Again, it has a niche that these guys don't, but it's probably like, yeah, sitting here at the bottom of the other C tier. But for the dogs, do we want to rank these guys with their buddies like Zacian with the lower form, or do you think we just ignore the
we do them together? We'll do it in one. We'll lump them sort of together, but we can separate them afterwards on the actual board.
Yeah.
So we have Zacian base form and
The crown form or the
Zacian crown
sword
form.
guy, yeah.
Yeah.
So
Zacian. Oh yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say, as you see here, with the crown form, it is 10 points faster with 30 more attack. Obviously this mon did get nerfed coming into this generation. At the time was considered probably the best Pokemon in the game. I still think it's really good. Definitely doesn't favor single restricted. I would say again, it's right up there with those, other 4 or 5 restricted where come double restricted, this is gonna be a fantastic partner. It's probably the best single target damage dealer, at least on the physical side of things. Obviously, Steel Fairy is a broken typing. The ability to get +1 when you first switch in is obviously also really, really good. I would say this mod's biggest issue, though, is obviously Incineroar. Obviously, resisting, your Steel-type moves, being neutral to your Fairy-type moves, and of course, then just being able to intimidate it definitely is its biggest weakness. Obviously, the base form of it does have access to run an item like Clear Amulet, but realistically, you're probably not doing it, I don't think. Like, 'cause then you feel like you have to run Swords Dance. But yeah, and also I don't think you get Behemoth Blade as well, right? I think Behemoth Blade is Behemoth Blade is for the big boy as well. Which I guess is the other thing to keep in mind. You have an 80 base power attack on regular form, where that turns into Behemoth Blade, which is obviously 100 base power. So
you also. I was going to say, you're also losing your steel type if you don't have the sword equipped.
I didn't even consider that, so you're probably just better off running something like Sacred Sword. Oh my god, it doesn't even get Sacred... Wait, what? Really? Oh no, I can't spell apparently. Don't worry. Yeah, so you'd probably end up running something like that, which, I don't know, personally I think just feels bad. I do know people have tested it out, especially with the Zamazenta going into the regular form, but yeah, I don't know. Do you have anything else to say about the baby form here?
The baby form, I've seen some unique sets where it's like Terra Ground, Terra Blast. So it'll be Ironhead, Player Rough, Terra Ground, Terra Blast. Good counter into the Miraidon sets.
Okay.
I believe it is faster than it.
It is, yeah, it is 3 points faster.
Yeah. Yeah, I believe it is faster than it, so you can sort of get that utility out of it. I think Clear Amulet is more of a fun, trying to have a bit of fun mon, whereas the Intrepid Sword, the Rusted Sword version, the crowned one, is probably where you're seeing a more serious mon. You need to get those plays right with this mon, it seems like. You sort of have to predictively Swords Dance whenever an Incense coming in. If you're running Sacred Sword, you can hit a lot more other targets, but if once you're intimidated, you're down to neutral and you're stuck like that for the rest of the game.
Yeah, so I will say as well with Zacian Crown in particular, I do have a lot of experience with this mon. I got it really high on the best of one ladder. I think it's an incredible partner with Regidrago and hyper offensive teams. I do think as a single target restricted, it also pumps out damage. Like the only single target restricted really doing more damage than it is Miraidon. So yeah, like I think it's still really good. Definitely a bit slept on. Probably sits right around number 10, I would say, in terms of usage, I think. But yeah, as you said, I have seen the Terra Ground Terra Blast stuff on this as well, because it is faster than Miraidon. Especially in this form as well. It's the technically like second fastest mon in the format. Like obviously I know Electrode and Aleki are both faster than it, but they see like no play at all. So really the only thing outrunning this thing in the metagame is Kali Shadow and then like Scarfers and Booster Energy mons. But yeah, I do think it's a bit slept on personally. Again, I might be biased because I've had a lot of success with this Pokemon. But yeah, I think it has a lot of really interesting sets. As you said, like obviously Incineroar is definitely like one of this one's biggest issues, but the Terra Ground, Terra Blast, and then on top of that as well, obviously being 1 good into Incineroar and 2 good into Miraidon does definitely give it a cool niche. And yeah, like I'm personally a believer in this one. I would probably say, part of me wants to say A tier, but it's probably top of B. And then this guy here is probably just like having fun.
I think the crowned form, it could go either at the bottom of A or at the top of B. I think that's I'm going to put it in B. I think a very good player who got all their Swords Dances off at the right time could do a deep run.
Yeah. I think it feels kind of weird because I feel like we need a B plus where like Zacian and Lunala live. I feel like
Yeah.
that's kind of what we're missing, but I don't think I can actually do it because we're in presentation mode. So it's like I feel like these two mons are definitely better than Eternatus, but maybe not on the same level as Koraidon. Like maybe we're missing a B plus tier now in hindsight. That's fine. We'll leave them there. We'll move on to the dogs, which are almost the end. We do have to do Tropicos at the end. But yeah, what are your thoughts on the Zamazenta forms here?
I think, firstly, for the regular Zamazenta form without the sword, I think if you're running that, you're probably coping a bit. I don't see it having as much.
It's
It doesn't have
faster,
much
which is
potential.
it's faster.
It
That's
is
the
faster?
niche. Yeah, it's faster. So this thing
Okay.
here is base 128. This thing's base 138. So it's faster with coaching. It's a support. So you're using it something like this with like body press coaching wide guard.
Ah, well, you know what? The more you know.
But you
I
don't have
think
the steel type, which
losing-
is I think its biggest issue.
Yeah, I was gonna say I think losing the steel type turns this mon from a threat to ghost types and normal types to sort of just struggling in front of ghost types. You need a secondary answer. I think a non-shield form Zamazenta could do well maybe in a double restricted. It could be something that's different, but I think the shield form is where it's at.
Yeah.
And I think that's the gravy.
I
Yeah.
agree. Like, I don't think this thing gets a dark type move, does it? I mean,
Maybe
Crunch or Snarl.
Yeah.
I do actually think Fast Snarl, I've seen on this guy before. Something like this to give you something to hit the ghost types. But yeah, I would say, like, this form, you're probably having fun. Like, maybe there's a niche, especially come double restricted. But realistically, it's not that good. Whereas this guy is really good. Obviously, most people these days aren't running Wide Guard and Iron Defense. Normally, you drop one for Protect. But regardless, Body Press plus Heavy Slam tends to be the go-to. Terra Water, I think, is the go-to as well. I think this one's incredibly good. I think there's those Chien Power teams in particular it's really good on. And yeah, it's also just really good with like the Fire, Water, Grass stuff, right? Where you pair it with like Incien, Rilla, and Urshi. You know, you click an Iron Defense, and then you just start like bopping everything with Body Press.
One thing I find very interesting about Zamazenta, it's very top heavy in what it does, its roles, its functions, that it requires very niche mons to work with it in order to fill the gaps.
Yeah.
So like you see a lot of like you on no other teams will you see Chandelure, Tyranitar, or Latios. You don't see those mons on other teams, but they actually fit very well and work very well on these Zamazenta teams.
Yeah. And
I think that. Oh yeah, go ahead.
So what
Sorry?
I was gonna say is Zamazenta also has some like really interesting matchups. Like when you look at the top restricteds, like obviously Zamazenta itself is not that good into Kali's Shadow. Obviously if you can force a Terra Fairy, then it's a bit of a different ball game with Heavy Slam. But realistically, like in a Kali Shadow matchup, it kind of becomes the support of the team with Wide Guard, which is definitely something to keep in mind, I think. And it's like that for some of the other restricteds, right? Like it has a pretty positive matchup into Kali Ice, of course. Into Miraidon, which I think is its worst matchup of memory. I remember seeing the stats on it. I think it's its worst matchup. It's pretty good into like Kyogre teams as well because they tend to be paired with Urshi. So it's like, okay, I'm gonna stick it next to my Urshi and just like support the Urshi while Urshi wins me the game. And I think that's probably the biggest issue with Zama right now is it feels like it's a mon where it's really matchup dependent on whether or not it's the carry of the team or if it's the support of the team. And it does a fantastic job supporting mons like Qianpao and Urshifu, of course. But also, like, it kind of feels bad when you're going up against like something like a Calyrex Shadow Rider, especially if you can't break through the Cali while Zamazenta's sitting next to it.
Yeah, yeah. I think for Zamazenta, it's probably an A tier mon. I think if you're an average player and you use Zamazenta, you won't get success. If you're a strong player and you use Zamazenta, you could win worlds.
I agree. I think.
Yeah.
Sorry, I was gonna say having it as like the mon at the bottom of that A tier does feel right because I do think you're right in the sense that this is probably the mon that if anything else was gonna win worlds, like out of like if I had to go for my long shot, it is probably Zamazenta. But again, I personally think Zacian's better than it. But I also think more people will be playing Zamazenta. At worlds at least.
Yeah.
Yeah, look, I'm happy to put it in the A tier anyway. I think it's good.
Yeah, yeah.
Give me 2 seconds. Can I even add? Oh, actually, I don't even think I can add it here. Oh no, I can. I'll pause for 2 seconds. Hold up, hold up, hold up.
Yeah.
Let me copy you. This should only take me 2 seconds. Sorry,
Um,
can't even find it. Where'd I put it? And Terapagos. Wow, just like that, we have Terapagos on the sheet now. Definitely should have talked about it earlier in the video, but yeah, we have Terapagos. Two main sets really that we see a bit of play on, right? It's the setup set and the choice spec set. Is there anything else I'm missing? Actually, I guess there's three, right? Because the media beam set as well.
yeah. So there's the typical setup set, which is Leftovers or Covert Cloak and Calm Mind. There's the Choice Spec set, which is 4 moves. I will go with the Terra Starstorm, usually Earth Power or Flamethrower. Sometimes I run Hyper Beam. Dark Pulse is also
Dark
another
Pulse, yeah, really
move that
solid
they run.
too.
A lot of options there. For the Calm Mind, it's either Terra Starstorm, Earth Power, and Protect,
Sometimes
or
you see
they remove
Flamethrower
Earth
here.
Power. I was going to say they remove it for Flamethrower, or even Substitute. I've been seeing a lot more of.
Interesting, interesting.
Yeah.
And then
And
what was the
for
last
the for the Power Herb set, it's usually Meteor Beam, Earth Power, and Terra Starstorm.
yeah, something like that, I think, is what the kids run. But
Sometimes even on those sets they run Rock Polish
I have seen that as
over
well.
Earth
Yeah.
Power, I believe. Yeah.
I think that was like a Japanese tech off memory, where it's like the double setup and then like, because obviously, yeah, you put like a little bit of speed on this guy. I think you run to like something like this, and then you outspeed everything in the metagame with Rock Polish, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
I was
gonna say definitely a very interesting mon. Personally, I've tried using the Calm Mind setup, and I think it's a bit too slow. Hitting it, nothing for super effective apart from Terra Starstorm. If the opponent terrors, is a bit underwhelming. I think if you run the choice spec set, you're gonna have a lot more success at Worlds, or even the Meteor Beam set.
So what I'll say about this mon is I agree. I think it's very matchup dependent. And it's also like a bit of skill as well, right? Like if you play up against someone who's not comfortable against like balanced teams, like the Carbine set can definitely run over teams. It's like really, really good.
Yeah.
The choice spec set, I've done a lot of testing with this. As you know, Luke was obviously looking at it for Worlds, and I was helping him test it. I would say the biggest issue I had with Terapagos is it felt like the support of the team. And there are definitely games where Terapagos will run through a team for you, like, don't get me wrong. But it also felt like there was a lot of times where, like, Terapagos' job in a game was to remove weather or remove terrain. Like, the amount of times it was like, oh, they just, like, set up rain, and I've got a Chi-Yu next to my Choice Specs Terapagos, and I terrored to remove the rain, and then, like, Chi-Yu won me the game was insane. But regardless, I still think it's a really good mon. I think all the sets are viable, especially in the right hands. Like I think the Leftovers or Covert Cloak as well, like in a good player's hands, definitely has the ability to win the World Championships. I think Specs can also win. I also think Power Herb can win. I'm a big believer in this mon. I think it's probably in the A tier. If I had to put it somewhere in particular, it's probably in like the 5 or 6 slot here, either above or below Koraidon. Do you have any opinions on exactly where you'd put it?
See, personally, I'd probably put it below Koraidon.
I'm not against that. I do think Koraidon is probably a better mon.
Yeah. I think Terapagos, the issue is it can be underwhelming sometimes. Although it has its Terra Shell, the fact that you don't have a defensive Terra can cause issues. I think you need to be a really good player with it to get good success out of it. But if you are a good player, you will do well.
Yeah, I agree. And look, I would not be shocked if this guy goes on and wins Worlds. I do kind of think this might be its last shot at Worlds, because I think this is probably the biggest loser of the Restricted Scum Double Restricted. I could be completely wrong. I also didn't think the mon was going to be that good originally, and it turned out to be very solid. But yeah, I don't know. I think it's got a shot. I think it's a pretty good mon. And yeah, I think in the middle of A tier is probably like a really good spot for it.
Yeah, I agree. It hasn't been getting very many results as of late. It seems like the Terraphagos players have gone into hiding.
Yeah,
Um,
I agree.
as a Cali Shadow man, I'm happy, but
Well,
to be honest,
that's the big thing too, right? That is one of its better matchups is Kali Shadow. Um, just the
yeah,
like being the only Terra, sorry, only normal and restricted, I think is obviously really good for it.
yeah, it's definitely a plus in its books.
But yeah, I guess is there anything else with the tier list? You think we should move around? Like I'm kind of looking at it now, and like part of me is like, if we're gonna have Dawn Wings here, like should we move up them on like Ho-Oh or Kyurem? Like maybe not, but I don't know. What do you think? Is there anything that we need to change? I do
If
think this is probably the
I
worst
was gonna
case
say,
here.
yeah, for the bottom, I'm pretty happy. Looking through Zamazenta's line, all of them fine. I'd say maybe even Dawn Wings could go down. Well, it's definitely a legitimate mon,
I don't like
but
the
you're also
extra
having
line
fun.
there.
Nah, leave it up, put it up. You're right. I don't
I
like
don't
it
like.
either.
Part of me feels like that's the. I feel like I just don't like Zacian being on the same level as these three as well.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
What do you think? Do you think I can sneak it into A? Will my personal bias allow it?
I'll give you the allowance to sneak it
Alright.
into A.
Well, yeah. That's my guy right there. Yeah. Like, I don't know. I actually think this one's good. And I think putting it there, saying it's like in the top 10, is yeah. I like the graphics they give us for restricteds are always the top 8 guys. I see a world where Zacian's in that top 8, and because of that,
Yeah.
I want it here in the A tier. I think because
I was gonna say, if you were to predict what the top eight would be, and so like top cut, top eight, how many of each mon would be in there? What would be the top eight mons in there, like the top eight teams?
top 8 teams. Are you talking? Do you want the whole team, or do you just want the restricted for it?
No, I'm just talking about like for example, I'll give you my example. I think there would probably be maybe two Kali Shadows, maybe three Miraidons, two Kali Ice, and I want to say how many do I have? One more, maybe one Kyogre, something like that.
It's difficult, right? Because obviously it really comes down to the draw on the day, yeah.
Yeah.
I would say the mon I expect to see the most in there would probably be Kali Shadow. I'm probably gonna go with like 3 Kali Shadows, probably like 2 Miraidon, 1 Kali Eye, and then like maybe 1 Kyogre, 1 Koraidon. But in saying that as well, I wouldn't be surprised to see like 2 Kyogre in there. I wouldn't be surprised to see like a Lunala, pop its head in. I definitely think the dogs are probably the least likely of that like set of 9, I think, to make it in.
Yeah.
But yeah, like if I had to guess, the S tier will probably take up minimum 6 of the top 8. That would be my guess.
Yeah,
But
I think we're pretty much on the same page there.
But yeah, like the most difficult thing always when it comes to like predicting this stuff is like how many like team kills are you gonna get, right? Because you could have like 8 Kelly S's in the top 16, but then they all play each other in the in that top 16 round, and then the max you can get is 4. Like, it really comes down to the draw, obviously. But I think we'll see the S and the A tier. I think we'll see at least one of them all in day 2. That would be my prediction.
Yeah.
And like the B tier is like maybe some mad lad pulls it off. Like I know a good friend of mine was talking about bringing Groudon to Worlds like 2 months ago. Whether or not that changed or not, I don't know. But yeah, well
I think if you get enough dice rolls that land on 6, then Groudon can definitely make it day 2, make top 8.
Yeah, no, I can definitely see that happening. Yeah, I guess, is there anything else you want to say here before we wrap this up? I think we've covered basically everything we wanted to here.
Yeah, I think that's all. Thank you for having me. Had a great time covering all the restricteds with you.
Anytime, Mike. Hopefully soon we can come back and talk about these bottom 3 here that only time will tell. Hopefully we get some PLZA news at Worlds, and Xerneas will hopefully get its time to shine next to old Fluttermane. Yeah, we'll get some fairy aura flutters.
Not keen for that.
Yeah.
Not keen for that.
Maybe one day. Anyway, if you guys made it to the end of the video, thanks for watching. I don't know how long this is going to be. It's probably going to be like an hour and a half, which is pretty fucking impressive. But yeah, I guess we'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.
Alright, bye.
Alright.
Like